We have these videotapes. We can actually calculate the velocity of these objects. We can calculate the g-forces on these ships. So that's the sea change. It used to be that if you were a UFO believer, the burden of proof was on you to prove that you saw something in the sky. Now it's shifted. Now the establishment has to prove that it isn't a visitor from another planet.
In 1953, Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, the director that had worked hard since the previous year to get out the report, suddenly left the project. What was left of Project Blue Book was a shadow of itself, a device used for public relations.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any department of the United States.
1952 was one of the biggest years of UFO sightings in U.S. history.
Earlier in 1952, a panel of scientists had been convened by the CIA. After meeting for 12 hours over the period of 4 days, the reports worked on by Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, Dr. Allen Hynek, and many others were brushed under the carpet. The idea was that, if given enough time, all those sightings could be explained away.
Every time I see a special on UFOs or unidentified phenomena, you always have experts. And my question is, when did they get off? What was the stop that dropped them, that qualified them to be experts? And I have a real problem with that. I truly believe that phenomena have been visiting this planet long before Project Grudge. I think there's adequate evidence of it. And the more we learn about the planet, the more we learn how little we truly know. And so the advance of science is something that has to keep evolving, and we have to keep learning. And I get real discouraged when I hear people, they think they know it, if you will. The old expression is a know-it-all, when really all they are doing is expressing their ignorance without knowing it.
The motion of the meeting was switched to calming down the public. A public relations campaign was proposed to debunk and remove the aura of mystery from the UFOs, all in an attempt to take away the public's attention. Project Blue Book was stripped of most of its power and resources and was transformed into a debunking device. Of course, this frustrated Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, thus making him leave. When Major Robert J. Friend tried to resuscitate the project years later, he got little cooperation and even a more limited budget. Everything went downhill from there. In 1969, Project Blue Book was terminated and its file declassified, but the damage has been done. Many reports have been debunked by the project after Ruppelt left. Other documents related to UFO, which were not held by the Project Blue Book, still remain classified, despite pressures and lawsuits from private UFO groups. And the public? Well, the public has moved on. The latter mission of Project Blue Book seemed to work more than the former. While the U.S. Air Force would secretly continue their investigation, the public stance still remains. Once again, the public is kept in the dark.
Well, to make a long story short, some years later, the group captain I worked for retired as an Air Vice Marshal, and I ran into him. And he was Air Officer Commanding at that time, was near Commodore in Singapore, or in Hong Kong. Anyway, we were talking about it. And I had been told by a former, I think it was a police inspector, who went from London out there and working for the Hong Kong police. And he said that the UK agency investigating UFOs was one floor above me in the same building that I worked in for 3.5 years. And yet, they did not admit its existence. This is just the tip of the iceberg, because some of the very unusual sightings were in the UK. And they were talking about the little Foo Fighters that were over Germany. And the Germans thought they were ours, and we thought they were Germans. Now, in the real world, balls of light do not have a place being guided by an intelligence, being airborne, and causing consternation or playing games. And this they have been known to do, i.e. the Royal Navy. And I looked up, and directly across the street to the south, I see 11 balls of light. They look like windows in an aircraft, and all of a sudden my mind is working a mile a minute. No, they're round. Aircraft windows are not round. Then they wouldn't be that large. We had 5 on top of 6, moving at a very nominal speed, maybe 300 or 400 miles an hour. And I just started to say something to my friend, look at that, whatever it is, and they turned off. They appeared and they disappeared. I was looking at the point in the sky when they appeared. They disappeared. So what do you do with it? So far as I'm concerned, that is totally inexplicable based on my judgment, my background, and my research. They are from someplace else.
2, 1, 0, all engine running.
In 1969, with the entire world watching and holding its breath, the Apollo 11 crew, Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins, have finally reached this notorious celestial body. It was indeed a small step for man, and at the same time, a giant leap for mankind. To everybody's surprise, the moon proved desolate and gray. There were no special findings whatsoever, except for a bunch of soil samples and rocks retrieved by the crew. And, of course, a lush collection of videotapes with the spaceflight and landing. Subsequent years have seen 9 other astronauts walk on the moon's surface. Every time, they would bring to Earth more and more soil samples, weighing hundreds of pounds, as well as priceless video footage. Then, after a while, some of the images were thrown out of the archive oven into the public's grasp. And there were plenty of anomalies that caught the eye, especially eerie lights and out-of-place objects that surrounded the missions. Of course, they were all ignored or debunked as lens flares or video glitches. But many people refused to put their trust in the official explanation and began scrutinizing the public data they had at their disposal. NASA claimed there was nothing out of the ordinary regarding the moon, but people sensed there was something more than met the eye.